My bad.
Hola, audiencia, bienvenidos para Hoy Dimelo Cinema Club. I'm tonight's host, Jason Eccles, and I am joined by Don Dino Pezzini, Steve Dev, TV, Michaela, and of course JP, who is a blind man tonight, it seems. So that's cool. Gonna do
Oh,
the
I
whole
didn't
thing
see that one
blind.
coming.
Let's see if
I
he can
definitely
stay in character, shall we? So tonight we watched
right.
the movie Cinema Paradiso, directed by Tornatori. Giuseppe Tornatori. So this movie came out in what 1988, and it won the Palme d'Or, I believe, in Cannes. Did it not? I believe it did. So this was like the best movie of the year in '88 in Cannes, at least. Um, It's an interesting flick, man. It's an interesting flick. To me, it plays as like a nostalgia film right off the bat. A little bit of romance, but it's about a kid in his whole life and how it centers around this cinema that he worked at growing up in his small Italian village. So this movie was recommended to me a long time ago, man, like years and years and years ago, like back when I was in college. And I just kind of kept it on the back burner. And I was going through like a list of movies I haven't seen that I'm like supposed to. And this one came up, and I'm like, you guys, we're doing Italian cinema. So I want to jump straight into first thoughts. I want to hear what you guys thought of this thing. How about you, Dino? Take it away.
Thanks, man. It also won the Oscar for the best foreign film that the year, I think in '89. I've seen this movie definitely a few times, a handful of times, maybe 5 times. There for a while, it was up there in one of my favorite films. I mean, I guess it still is. It's definitely up there of I don't know if it's impactful. It's up there with kind of Life is Beautiful, and I mean they're both Italian films, but I I found out about it because I really enjoyed Ennio Morricone. You know, he does all the soundtracks for all the spaghetti westerns and a bunch of other films. Tarantino uses his music, and yeah, I just started going down a rabbit hole of movies that Ennio Morricone had done soundtracks for, and this was one of them. And I just loved it. From the first time I watched it, it felt magical. It's like if you enjoy film and cinema, to be exact, right? Not that Marvel artsy fartsy shit. No, if you grew up, let's put it that way. If you grew up loving film as a little kid, I think this movie is for you. I enjoyed everything. Also, the little kid, Toto, the little kid of the version of the character, looks just like one of my classmates, like when he was a kid. So there was that whole thing of it. But yeah, it's a lovely story. Like it reminded me as a kid going to the movie theater. Like we only had one screen in Paraguay when I was growing up. Like it was a huge event. I remember some of the biggest films that, Jurassic Park. I remember we were literally in a line around the block. Like, stuff that they talk about how in the 70s when Jaws came out and Star Wars and all that, like when you have one movie, theater in your town like that, everyone shows up. So, yeah, I don't know if it's because Italian, it was small town mentality. Like, to me, every it hit everywhere. It just hit all the notes. When I first watched the movie, I made my brother watch it. I made my dad watch it. My girlfriend watch it. Like
How old
anytime
were
I had a
you
chance
when you were?
to what?
How old were you when you were making everybody watch this movie?
Uh, 21, 22, and 23, maybe right around there.
Okay, for some reason I pictured you as like a little kid trying to make people watch this movie. Like, what are you doing, like little
I
kid?
probably would. The movie came out what in '89.
'88.
So if 88. So I mean, at 89, as a 5 year, I would be Toto's age. Like I would
Yeah,
probably
trying
watch
to
it, and
introduce this movie to all your friends. They're like, get out of here.
no, you got to watch it the film. Because that's the
Yeah.
same accent in Paraguay. You gotta watch it the film. It's a Toto. It's an old man. It's a movie theater. Anyway, I can't say enough nice things about this film. And watching it again, I watched it here. I had the lights off. I had a candle burning there, so it was like flickering, and it took me back. And not only took me back, oh man, there's so much. Let's talk about later when we get into more things, details and stuff. I'll get into it. But it has a warm place in my heart, and hopefully we'll get to it a little later. Yeah, that's it for me right now.
Thanks, Dino. I don't know about you guys, but Dino's got a real thing for this movie, it seems like. We might be in
Just a
for
little.
some trouble tonight if keeping this show under an hour if he keeps going on like this. He's really into this.
Just a
So
little.
we can't wait to hear more. Michaela, can you give us a first impression, perhaps?
It takes a village.
It takes a village.
You know, like I think that's like the entire like point of this film. It's very warm-hearted. It really is like a love letter to like the power of movies and how stories really do bring communities together. And it, like you can just feel that in the entire show, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I thought Martin Scorsese's Hugo was a better love letter to cinema as opposed to this film. And I also thought it was very poignant and great that you guys mentioned all the awards that this movie won, because the movie itself let you know for the first 10 minutes all the awards that it won and all the Could you imagine? I'm not gonna lie, I actually really liked the movie, but I was so fucking pissed off at the first minute. I was like, I couldn't help but think in the back of my head, could you imagine if every fucking movie did this? Like,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, that's a huge flex right there, guys. This is us right here. You know, just like
Right.
You know what, though?
the right one's definitely a little more formed than that left one. So yeah.
This was very much a trend in the late 80s and early 90s with the films, maybe even before that, maybe even like up to the mid 80s to like the early 90s. There was a trend when people won the Palme d'Or, especially, they always would show like the list of awards they got. And I think that's because they were looking for American distribution and
I
whatnot.
was gonna say foreign films.
Okay.
You didn't say foreign films, but definitely foreign films. I always see awards and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
they're letting you know, like, hey, you're watching something that the rest of the world really likes, man. So you're gonna want to present this with your studio in America.
Oh man, it definitely didn't work with me at all. I was like, man, I hate the Italians. This has to be in the history of the world. Perhaps the second worst thing they've ever done was open that film with that first 15 minutes of awards and accolades. Thank God that first half hour of movie was saved by a pretty good 2-hour film. Because, oh my God, could you imagine if you sat through 45 fucking minutes of a movie telling you how good it is? Fuck me.
I think I had a similar reaction as you, JP.
It was a little jarring.
Was that your first impression, JP?
That literally was. That's how the movie started.
All right, cool. Steve, what's your first impression?
Well, my first impression was that I live in an era where I can just move the thing and start the movie where it actually starts. And I didn't even have to go through that. So I'm sorry for the people that went through that, but I didn't even know that was a part because I just went like, here's where the movie starts. And
well done,
there.
Steve.
Yeah. I didn't know I was a genius, but I guess I am.
Does Bruno Mars keep changing his glasses?
What?
Is Bruno Mars changing his glasses every time he gets off screen?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
Why are you derailing the conversation with your sidebar, Dino?
Why are you interrupting my first impression?
I'm sorry. I'm getting tripped out by Bruno Mars down there.
Oh my God. Okay, so my first impression. Let me go ahead. My first impression was that I seen this movie before. Don't remember when, why. Maybe when I took Italian class, because I did see some Italian movies. That's why I saw La Vita Bella for the first time. But I freaking love this movie, and I can't believe why there's so many great Italian films that are like so like heart wrenching, and the whole they take you in, and it's such great cinema, like such great acting. So like there's so many things that is just like, wow, this is on par, if not better than most American cinema. And I really, really enjoyed this movie. I even cried in this movie. Uh, but it was a masterpiece of a movie. That's my first impression.
That's cool. That's cool. My first impression for this thing is pretty similar to yours, Steve. I will say this though, when the movie started, I read a lot of those awards, and I was like, oh, that's impressive. And then it got to be too many, and I said, okay, that's enough. And then I kind of just, stopped looking at the screen until the awards ended. So that was also one of my first impressions. I did, in fact, like this movie quite a bit, actually. I didn't really know what it was about. I knew it had something to do with the cinema. I figured a young man working in a cinema with his grandpa, that's what it looked like. But I mean, and essentially that's kind of what it was. It's a beautiful movie, man. And it does do that weird Italian thing that we seem to enjoy so much, the group of us. It does that kind of quirky Italian kind of thing where there's like quirky Italian comedy in it, and it's very like homey and nostalgic, and it's very much like Michaela said, like a lot of Italian films have a lot to do with like kind of like The Village, I think. You know what I mean? Like it's everybody's problem. It's sort of their way of, or everybody takes ownership of it. It feels like in an Italian thing. Um, it's a nice movie, man. It's a nice movie. It is. It has a ton of very memorable moments, I think. Um, and it's about a lot of things. So it gets you thinking a lot, and it's not just about one thing, But ultimately, it's a film about life, and I think that's what Italian cinema does very well. It's like here's the compass of a person's life, based on the things that they were raised by or given, or their situation, their circumstance, and also their character. Uh, so yeah, that was my first impression of it. I liked it quite a bit. Um, so you guys can speak freely. I'm not going to call names anymore. I just like to introduce it that way. But let's jump right into like the look of this film, because the look of this thing kind of emulates a lot of kind of bigger Italian films that came out in the 80s and 90s. Like Life is Beautiful comes to mind. Kind of had some duller Life is Beautiful sort of vibes to it too. And plus, the story takes place a long time ago. It's essentially a period piece. So I think that kind of lends itself to that feeling too. But did you guys have that same nostalgic type feeling about this movie?
100%. And I think that, like you were saying, it's a very Italian film thing. Like even the stuff that's like a little off the bar, because like Dino, you were talking about because like I just watched a film called, I think it was pronounced Accorde, and it's very much the same thing, like a coming of age story. There's the quirky like characters in the village. Like you can just see that this is like a very important part of Italian culture that they just really want to highlight and show what's important to them. And because like you can just see it throughout the decades with like
Yeah.
those warm tones, the natural light, the beautiful seascapes, the beautiful like landmarks around them. Like they really want to show you their home.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's such a lovely thing.
I was gonna say like not that many films now. From my experience, like the setting is almost a secondary character.
Mm-hmm.
Because like some parts of the movie, it does feel like, oh, this is obviously some set or in a studio, but at least like it's practical and it's real. Like you know that they're actually living in an area or living in this small town where this plaza is such like it's home for everyone. That's basically like there's even a line in the movie where it's like the plaza belongs to everyone, and there's one character who always says, "No, the square is mine," and you know
Yeah.
it kind of adds on to that charm. Was like, oh no, this is like where everyone greets and whatever. You know,
Mhm.
like sure we all live in our individual homes, we all have our individual lives, but we all share this part of the town, and in the town you have also the church and the cinema, which plays like an integral role for this story. Like, for the look of the film, like for me, I'm glad how the sets looked and like how the town itself. It was really, really nice.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I definitely agree with the nostalgia thing and the relatableness of it. And that's why when like I knew some of the movies that they were referencing in the movie or that they were showing of, clips, and a lot of them was at times using to kind of mirror the emotions of characters or the town or the time of passage, even when they're showing the Odyssey and what that means with the character. And the same where the town, like it actually is the different time periods of different moments in Italy's history. So like right
Mhm.
after World War II, that's why the dad's away. Then you have fascism going on, and like so you have all these different kind of like pinpoints in just Italian history, but a lot of other countries have similar times during that. Everyone kind of was involved in World War II. But then, like, when I watched it with my dad, like, he would remember and recall him and when he would go to the movies, right, as a little kid. And, like, Alfredo, the older guy that was running the film, right, he talked about when he first started and then when it was, like, black and white and, and he had to actually, like, move the camera spindle going. And, so my dad could relate on another level, than I could relate to it. So I think that's why this movie can attract so many more people, is that everyone has different things that they can, uh, put, I guess, put their hat on or
Yeah.
whatever that phrase is.
Latch on to the age of it, right? Because there's so many. The lead character in this thing, in one way or another, or the center of the character is always like it's a little boy, then it's a teenager, then it's a middle aged man, and then there's an old man, and so you get like four different branches of like a human's life. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah,
And they're all extensions of one another. So this thing would, I think, play well to anyone. Like that's a really good point, and I think that's why this is such a fan favorite, and people have loved this movie for a really long time, and it's one of those movies that like you don't get advertised to very much. I feel like this is one of those movies like Dino has done where you just sort of like, hey, you got to see this movie. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Because it's kind of a meditation on life a little bit too. And I think that's why the Italians and maybe even like the European countries love this thing so much.
Mhm.
for sure. I also, I think the whole idea of the square and the town mentality, like there's the guy, the town belongs to me. He's kind of he's I guess the crazy character that every town, like American towns are usually so big, but in your neighborhood, like growing up, like you know, you knew those people. You knew the people in the park. You knew there was a guy that was homeless, but everyone chipped in to help out, right? Or the
Mhm.
kid was staying with someone else. Like you knew those people around your town, and whether from church, everyone knew him, or at the park where people would show up, at least in Paraguay, to play soccer like every single weekend and stuff like that. All the kind of characters that were around, like you could, again, relate to from one character or another. And I think the movie did a great job of not just showing that little kid growing up,
Mhm.
but the town itself. and the other characters, and then how certain characters found love like in the movie theater, and like how certain characters also grew and stuff like that. And then there's all, that I thought was done really well as well, because a lot of movies, and maybe this is a thing with American movies, it's like we really should just focus on one or two characters, right? Like I don't know if that's kind of playing the audience as like they're not going to be able to keep track of all these other characters, or it's only the story is important and two characters, whereas they made the town and the people of the town a character in themselves, and to show their growth and evolution, I thought was really well done.
I just
I
to
feel
add
like
to what
maybe that's a
just to add to what Dino was saying, like those were one of the aspects that I really mainly enjoyed about the movie itself, was like when you had those moments where like basically the screen brought the people together, and you will see like this chaos of like happening there. Like there were so many different scenes happening, but it's what brought everybody together. And I honestly thought, I understand that there's the story A and B, but the, like Dino said, like the whole town together felt like its own thing, and it brought a lot of energy to like the movie itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. There was sort of like having to keep track of all these characters, and it wasn't even a matter of keeping track. It just sort of made the world more alive. That the town became like a living, breathing entity all on its own. And you kind of wondered like what everybody thought about everything that was going on, and they showed you that that the camera moves around and whips around, and it kind of shows you like everybody in the town and like what they're about. You know what I mean? Like just in moments, and the actors would play these moments like so brilliantly. It was, I don't think there's a bad performance in the thing. Everybody's really great. But to Dino's point, I think maybe the reason we get that 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 everybody kind of becomes a centerpiece of the whole thing. It might just be Italian storytelling. I mean, it makes me think back to like Commedia dell'arte and all that kind of stuff, where each character is so important to the story, so that Italian audience could recognize like who this person represents in the story. It might be something to that effect. I mean, I don't know, maybe something to go back and look at, but that's to me that just feels super Italian, like every piece of Italian cinema maybe I've ever seen, even. Yeah. What'd you guys think of the cinematography and camera work and stuff?
There were so many moments in this film where I was just like, oh my gosh, that's such smart filming. Ah! Like there's this one moment where like, I don't even remember what it is, but like the shot starts off like in the distance and you see something happen, and then they instantly switch it back to like a smaller detail that kind of like lends itself to like the bigger picture, and like that move is just like so sudden and stark. It's just stunning camera work, and like there's just so many examples of that in this film that like I got really excited about.
Yeah, they had some pretty fancy moments in this movie that took place in 1988. It is smart filmmaking. It's interesting for filmmaking to look at visually. And it reminded me again of it just, I don't know if it's because it was made in the 80s, but the fact that it's made in the 80s and it's talking about a time period, and this took place in what, the 50s, 60s? When does this happen?
Like, no, this was this during the Second World War?
Yeah, it starts during the Second World War.
So that has to be 40s.
It goes from like late 40s to about 57.
It looks like the 70s.
57.
Okay, well, like, how do we know?
Because he's gone for 30 years.
Yes.
But there's an in-between gap from Second World War to his teenage years, so that's at least
and in his teenage
years.
Well, in the teenage years, they showed that it was like they actually say that it's 1957.
Really?
Yes.
I wasn't listening.
Which would mean that 30 years later, it'd be 87.
So wait, how do we know the movie starts off at the beginning of the First World War?
Not First
Second
World War.
I mean the Second World War.
Because of one of the film that and like the father is a soldier and he got sent off to Russia.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then they talk about the war ending, so that that's one of the things when they're out in the plaza, that they there's a they hear it over the radio or it's being announced and stuff like that, and then that's how he finds out that his dad passed away when they're showing a reel of
And
stuff.
he edits
So
it out.
those are kind of moments where it kind of pinpoints where they at. And then of course when he has to join the military, that's I'm not entirely sure what age it is in Italy, but I would imagine it's around 17, 18. So yeah, there are moments throughout his life that kind of keep going, and it ends at the present time, which would be the 80s, at that time. So.
So yeah, no, that and like not only that, but they show the reel. They have a shot of a building that was like up while it was still there, and it got torn down by something. They never really talk about it, but you see one of the buildings turn to rubble. Yeah, there's like a lot of like
and I guess for us it might be harder, but showing the movies, right? So if we were better at like when they showed The Odyssey or when they showed some of the gangster flicks and stuff like that, when it's going from like black and white to getting some color films.
And like if you also pay attention to the actors that they have highlighted in the room's walls too, that shows you who's popular at the time.
Oh, and then Gone with the Wind poster, and that's I don't know if I'm gonna get into it just with the cinematography and stuff, but the use of weather to also like not only are they're showing so many things, I felt at least, to show the passage of time, of emotion, and kind of helping you feel that. I felt like wind would come in a lot. Wind and rain like was a constant thing that would definitely show the passage of time and feelings, right? And then to even just going through the rubbles, and you have like Gone with the Wind, which is also about war and everything, and I thought they did that super well of just like constantly showing the weather, not just in the movies, but in the movie itself, in their life. And I don't know if people notice that kind of adding to the filmography, the cinematography.
100%. That's like what makes this like such like when you see those coming of age stories, like it's definitely a different take from like Forrest Gump, where it's like Forrest Gump's like, this is exactly what's happening, and we have this very clear memory of this specific historic moment, where it's just like you can feel the history happening all around this small little place, and we can intuit that, but they never say anything about it, and that's like something very beautiful in that. Because that's how it kind of feels in real life when like big historic things happen. Like even like if you look at today, what's going on in the world, like it's a big historic thing that's happening, but in our daily lives, does it feel like it's a huge big thing, or does it feel like we're still kind of in bed doing the same routine every single day?
It is way more subtle, which is weird for what we think of Italians being so pompous and over the top and everything. Yet it's just like subtle little, whether it's the posters in the backgrounds or whatever, or when the family has to move because the dad or whatever is part of the Communist Party or whatever. It's not like over the top of like, they're commies, and it's just like this small thing to kind of let you know what the tension's going on in the town, and just in that time period, in that in Italy at that moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure. You're right. This is more of a subtle Italian movie, maybe one of the most subtle, actually. Modern, not black and white. But what's kind of flamboyant, I feel like the director's choices and like his temperament for this story, like he kind of tells this story in a very flamboyant, like in your face sort of way, but all the action on the screen is very subtle. It's very masterful when you think about it. Like he really painted this thing with this sort of tempo and temperament, and you feel like you're a part of this town, just sort of watching this movie. You just feel like you know what everybody's next move is based on sort of who they are, and then someone will surprise you sometime, and things will change. You're like, huh. Or pressure builds up, I should say, and then there's like a little release, and you're like, oh, okay. This movie has that all over the place because it feels like 3 or 4 different stories because it takes place in different segments of this guy's life, you know? So one of the things that I wanted to ask you guys was because there's so many stories sort of in this movie, what are some of your favorite moments? I want to hear everybody's favorite moment, but we usually do somebody's favorite character too. So I guess we can come back around to that. But I really like to know everybody's favorite moment from this thing.
I'm gonna add not only a favorite moment, but a least favorite moment.
Sure.
Because I really
Wait,
love.
was your least favorite moment the credits again?
Okay,
The award
my
credits?
second least
Okay.
favorite moment.
Okay.
Because I love that the cinema itself is such an important thing to the story. So I was shocked when by the end of the movie, um, the lesson is like to keep moving forward. You know, like the past doesn't define you. You know, it helps you to get to where you are, but it doesn't have to define you. And so, there was a moment in the film where Kayla said, it's like, well, he's probably going to use his money to like fix the theater again,
Right.
like a second time. It's like, no, it's done. What's done is done. It's destroyed. So I loved him, Salvatore revisiting the theater, him watching it, like, because we as the audience, it was already devastating to see like this nice theater be destroyed in a fire, but then you feel so happy and grand when it's fixed, and not only is it fixed, but it's made much more beautiful, much more immaculate, something more fitting for the town, only for after a few decades later to be in an even worse state than it was after the fire.
Yeah.
So him revisiting the theater was so brilliant and so great. It was beautiful. And my least favorite thing, it's not too much of a segue, is the theater itself, the history of the theater, where we're reminded how fucking disgusting a movie theater can actually be.
Hmm.
You have like kids jerking it in the front row. You got like I'm not dogging on breastfeeding, but you have like, a woman breastfeeding. You got people snoring. You got some rich pompous motherfucker spin on people on the top balcony, and someone
That son of a bitch.
rightfully so throws a bag of dog shit at their face. So great, and then you have someone fucking. And I was like, oh my god! And I know that most of these happen in different scenes in the film, but I hated seeing the ugliness. I was like, oh man, that sounds about right. Yep, I've been to an AMC where shit like that happened. Okay.
Theater is where life happens. That should be like a theme for the Nuevo Cinema Paradiso, where life happens.
Oh my god, the two people fucking though. I think that's where I drew the line. I was like, nah, this thing. God,
You
damn.
forgot the prostitute getting tricks.
Oh god, well, she has to do the side hustle, and I think that was literally in the same scene too. Like like these two people like just having at it like dogs, but then you got some nice lady doing business for
Yep.
like on the side.
You're such a prude. You're such a prude.
That's how it goes down in Italy, baby.
With the priest ringing the bell every time someone was kissing. That's you.
Every time the neck him.
Like the amount of
He
times
would
like
be the
you'll be
priest.
watching something and sex happens and you're just like, eh!
JP ain't having the sex. You don't
I
want to
mean,
see it.
He's very against it.
I feel like the priest has to be one of the best characters. And to think like the priest at times is the comic relief, right? I mean, the whole bell thing, like they do that. Oh, is that one of the kind of shots you were talking about, Michaela, where it's like the priest sees something, Toto sees something, Alfredo sees something, right? It's just like how each one kind of reacts to the kiss, right? And it's like back and forth. It's like screen, it's like priest, it's like the little window where Alfredo is, it's like Toto behind the curtains, like it's just so that and that sets this up. That's early in the film. It's like almost the first scenes when that once goes into flashback mode of like setting up what's gonna continue to happen, right? It's a early setup of like some of the most important characters and just like the reactions. So yeah, the whole priest, because then that whole thing of no kissing, no like kind of lewd behavior on screen, and that's such a beautiful moment, because early on you hear like people like, just the once I would like to see a kiss, but in Italian, and then when it happens, and the whole audience, the whole theater, the whole town, well, after like after the theater burns down and like a phoenix that comes back into neon colors, and it's the first kiss, and the way like, oh man, I would love to know like how the director decided on like what movies he chose and what clips he chose, and then like his reasoning for choosing that clip to be the one that the audience finally gets to see a kiss on screen. So really quick, I had I had so many good moments. I think the priest is one of my favorite one. And then when Toto is finally leaving, I was like, Toto, like I mean, Toto, right? And Alfredo, like Alfredo and the church telling the priest that he's got doubts about, like how did Jesus make so much bread, and where'd the fish come from, and all that, and like the priest is about to lose it. But then once there's even kind of the sexy stuff in the movie, at times the priest, like he starts jingling his little incense thing, like he's like feeling the beat in the music of that, like, and then he's like, oh wait, I gotta be respectable. So definitely priest. It was great. I love the guy that had the really hoarse voice. He was a great character, and I guess kind of like when there was one of the movies, there was just like a whole lot of like scrolling a title or dialogue or narration, if you will, like credits wise. And like one of the guy asks the older guy like, "Hey, what does it say?" And the guy's like, "I can't read." Like, you too. So just like this moment of like people, like those little moments, right? Of just like, yeah, it's a town by the ocean, and like a lot of hard workers. Then you see like Alfredo and like all these people that never got their like diplomas or whatever, trying to come back. Like, so many moments. I might even interrupt later when a new one comes up, but yeah, those are just a few of my Dino's favorite moments.
What about
I'm
you,
sure
Steve?
that was the whole movie. Just kidding.
Okay, simmer down.
Well, I will say this, just to piggyback off of with Dino. One of my favorite scenes is the same scene, the kissing scene. It's beautiful. I've never seen anything like that in cinema before, and it's simple, but they set it up beautifully with like right away. Like this priest does not like kissing in the movie, and this little boy comes along and changes the culture of this town. Really, you know what I mean? So his stamp was on this town forever. Like these people were different because of what they were able to see for the first time in their lives. You know what I mean? Like that's wild to think about.
And it's
so yeah,
great I was gonna say it's great that the movie also kind of ends that way as well. When Alfredo leaves him behind all the film clippings, which ended up being a compilation of all the stuff that he was forced to cut out.
That he never sent back with the films, which was funny in itself. It's like I just forget. I forget to put it back in.
So wait, Alfredo gave that to him?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like they had that deal when he was like a little boy that
they were his.
That they were his.
Yeah.
But Alfredo had to hold on to them. And then when Alfredo died, he turned them into this like master reel for him.
Mm-hmm.
Not
From
only
like
that, I've seen it so many times. When the thing catches on fire, and it's either before he's able to pull Alfredo out or after. There's a shot of the can of film bouncing down the steps, and it made it out.
You're
So
right.
so the film was like, because I'm like, wait, he's blind and he was able to splice it all together. Like, good for him. But it's I guess that's implied. Like, no, he had already spliced a bunch, and you see like the one thing that gets saved from the fire is this can of film that just magically, there's got to be some magic in the cinema. So
mhm.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
you can go back, Jason.
No, it was
I love
Steve
this
who was
film.
talking. Steve is about to tell us his favorite moment of the movie.
Oh, can I talk now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I agree with the one that Dino said about the altar, the ringing the bell, because I mean, unlike Toto, I wasn't falling asleep, but I was one of those kids ringing the bell because I grew up Catholic. So that gave me a little bit of nostalgia. I would say when he was leaving and Alfredo was giving him that speech, that to me was a very powerful moment. Uh,
Mhm.
and the one of the ones that like got me, and I really liked that they put this in the movie because this movie hit you with them lines like here and there, and there was this line where he comes back as a grown-up old Alfredo. I mean Toto, and he's talking to his mom, and his mom says that every time she called him, some different girl will pick up, and she could tell by her sound that they didn't love him. And you would think when he's leaving, oh, he's leaving for a better life, he's all happy, all this stuff, and like to show that it's amazing. And then looking back, when he was like looking back at the film, at the footage, and everything, like and reminiscing about his life essentially, because even I had recently those moments, and yeah, man, and they're tear jerkers. So I enjoyed those moments a lot.
I mean, what a moment you talked about with the Alfredo giving him the speech when he's about to leave town. Like what a beautiful, powerful thing. And he's basically telling him like, don't be nostalgic, don't look back. But yet this whole movie is about looking back and
Yeah.
nostalgia because he kind of like kept it pent up for so long that like all these memories start rushing back to him later in life. He really did follow Alfredo's advice. It seemed like he kind of like his own mother hadn't seen him in 30 years. Was that the case?
At the home, like she even said, you've always paid for me to come see you. You
Mm,
never come back. So
right.
that was said early on. And then finally at that age, he was like, "Oh, it was just a 1 hour flight or 2 hour flight," and she's kind of like, "Oh, that hurts. You shouldn't have told me that it was that quick of a trip for you to make," type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm glad you
I
brought up
mean,
the
but he listened to Alfredo.
yeah,
He trusted him that much. Like, if you say so, and it's kind of beautiful because it almost feels like he was senseiing him, right?
well, yeah,
It feels like he was like saying, like, no, your life would be so much more beautiful if you just put this away in a box and come back and see it later. You'll
yeah,
appreciate
and
it so much more than if you stay here and live it out. Like, you have so many more things you need to do with your life. Don't even consider this. This is for later.
Yeah,
yeah,
no, and
he.
it's hmm?
Oh no, go on, Kayla.
Well, and it's just like it's so like it really does show like the cultural difference because like if this had been an American film, I feel like the advice would have been like never forget where you came from.
Yeah,
That's
for
like
sure.
such a prevalent thing in cinema that you see over and over again is like don't forget your roots. Whereas this, you know, like Alfredo, the patriarchal figure in this story, he's like saying like, no, they're like, I did that. Like I stayed here with my roots, and like I spent my life watching everyone else do these wonderful, wonderful things through cinema, and I know that you're smart enough and clever enough to do this cool things.
Like,
so do the things.
Like, don't have people talk with you. Have people talk about you.
Mhm.
Like, well, was one of the
Love
he
it.
it was weird. He said a lot of fortune cookie shit right
Mm.
in that whole speech. I was
Mhm.
like, God damn.
Well, I like early on. It's like again, it's like so many just they build so much. So he's always giving advice, and it's like, oh wow, who said that? And it's like Humphrey Bogart, or you know, like it's all just like he's just repeating lines from movies because it's like, yeah, he's watching the same movie like just over and over and over. That he's just like reciting. It's like, oh my god, that's great advice. It's like, well, actually, I heard it here. But then that like final time or like last couple of times, it's like, oh, who said that? Humphrey Bogart, Clark Gable, you know, and it's like, no, that's me. The
I mean,
nostalgia thing happened, and I'm glad you
it
brought
was the
that up.
last
Also,
time he was gonna. It was the last time he was gonna see. Well, he couldn't see, so feel him.
hey,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Steve. I imagine you going back to Puerto Rico, you know, it must be at a certain time kind of, you know, jarring, not necessarily jarring, but for me, it's definitely I watched this movie and then it was like it had been like 10 years since I've been to Paraguay. So I mean, it's not like Alfredo, but it's weird, man. It's weird going back to a place like you grew up in and it's
Mhm.
just completely different, you know. And you're just like, what am I doing here? Like the nostalgia, like, and even now, this is the longest I've been back in Alabama to see my parents, and I hadn't for like 5 or more years, I hadn't been back at all. So just like coming back, and they moved to a new house, so I'm just like, I don't know what this place is anymore. Like it's
It's not the
yeah,
same place.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you said that don't give into nostalgia, I was just like, for everything nowadays, like all these movies are just like remake, Ghostbuster Afterlife, even like Matrix, even you know, everything is just like let's let's bank on nostalgia. Let's like that's the constant thing.
Oh,
And
Did you see they're going to do a Fresh Prince of Bel Air? It's a drama now.
yeah, of course.
That's a
And they do
drama.
the reunion bits and stuff like that. Even like it's what sells. It's what banks. And the target audience, I think, is the millennials. You know, for the most part, it's kind of like
I think it's both. Like Cobra Kai does. It's a
yeah,
Mhm.
new audience that knew nothing about it, and then there's like the millennial Gen Zers who like that's what they grew up on.
yeah. My
Yeah.
dad was asking me about like why are all these Marvel movies like why is Disney Plus a thing? Why he's like I didn't like that. And I was like, yeah, you don't understand. Like people that saw Star Wars in the theaters when it came out, then they saw the sequels and then the prequels maybe with their kids. Now those kids have had kids, you know, so it's like this 3, 4 generation groups of people that are now just eating the same, you know, kind of, Cheerios, if you will, of cinema. But and my dad's like, he's like, I know nothing of that. His like favorite actor was Charles Bronson, and it was because Charles Bronson barely spoke, so my dad didn't have to worry about. I, not that my dad is illiterate and couldn't read, but if the movie didn't have any subtitles, he doesn't really speak English, especially back then, to be able to follow what the characters are saying. So he's like, yeah, Charles Bronson didn't speak, so it was easy to follow. So yeah, stuff
Makes
like
sense to
that.
me.
And
Yeah,
it kind of just points out how like dangerous nostalgia like dealt with really kind of is in a way, because like it's so easy to get caught in like that same routine to the point where it's like hard to progress any because that's not the way we do things here, you know, which is why Alfredo fought so hard to break that cycle.
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of amazing too when you think about it because he comes back to his little old town and it's not the same. It's not the same town anymore that he grew up in. It's a completely different place. some of the faces were there, aged, but it's not the same. Nothing is the same. The whole energy is gone. It left. When you left, a part of that energy from molding that town went away. And he was kind of the person who would mold a town. Wherever he went, he became very successful and did his thing and left his mark. But it's like this isn't the place for you to do that. You got to go do that on your own term. Another
Well,
great
he became a film director or
Yes.
film producer. So,
Right. Another great scene that I really kind of stand by. I love the setup with the priest in the beginning, where he's like, "Nope, get it out of here. Nope, no more boobies ever, no more kissing. It's out." Like that whole like kind of montage to set it up. Like I didn't quite know what kind of movie I was getting, but for a kid, that's a huge adversary. You know what I mean? To take down the priest's wishes to save the town, so to speak. That's like it's huge, and like the movie got off to a pretty big start. I'm like, wow, that was his first adventure. You know what I mean? Like, how does it get much bigger than this? That seems like in most movies that would be the end of the movie. He defeated the priest, right? That's
Right.
the whole
And can we,
thing.
like, take a second to talk about that kid actor?
Mhm.
His performance, like,
Yeah.
I was like so confused when I found out he was supposed to be like a fifth grader. Like, what clearly happened is they found the most charming like little boy imaginable,
Yeah.
and was just like him.
Yeah, for sure. He was fantastic.
Oh my
Like,
gosh!
you don't mind watching him at all. And he's a kid actor and he's in it and he's, very intuitive with the adults and he's great. I don't think there was a shabby performance in this thing, no matter how old any of the characters were. They were all kind of pitch perfect, I thought. Let me see. What was another? There was 3 scenes I had in mind. There was that. There was the advice scene. Oh, in the kissing scene, his first kiss or his first love or whatever that situation was in the rain. Like she surprised him at his little drive-in cinema job or whatever on the boats, and it starts raining, and they have their little memorable kiss. Even though, like, eventually he doesn't even know what happened to this girl, and he never sees her again. Like that's a huge moment in his life. It was like a beautiful moment, and it's filmed very beautiful. And it's the cover of the box of the movie, of the poster or whatever. So it's a great scene. It's really really lovely and beautiful. Yeah. So those are my favorite scenes in the film. You guys want to wrap it up by talking about maybe a favorite character or somebody you identify with, and then we can go into final thoughts.
Yeah, we can do that. Like I said, I really liked the little boy character. Like the little boy was my favorite to watch this whole thing, just because like he really did come off like so much smarter and like more charming than he really should have. Like maybe he is older than I think he is, but like he just looks so young compared to everyone else that was supposed to be his peer, and it just astounds me how great his performance was.
Yeah, he really was terrific.
Yeah, I have to agree with Michaela. To me, there were everybody from top to bottom, superb acting, but you can't help but be charmed or be like fully like smiling while seeing young Toto just being curious about everything. Even when his mom was literally like, hitting him. Like there was domestic violence here. But it reminds me of me. That happened to me. So I identify with him the most and I enjoyed him the most. Yeah.
That's really cool too. That was a great scene when Alfredo gives the mom the money that Alfredo spent to go to the movie theater because he had an obsession. And he basically gave her the money back, essentially, I would guess, or he gave his money to her. I thought that was a very sweet moment, and that kind of made me think like, oh, there's nice people in this town. What a nice movie projectionist. He know that she needed the money or whatever, and this little kid was being a kid, and he kind of corrected it. And I thought that was like, and the mom never knew that that's what he did. That he did a great deed. He just quietly did it and left it at that. The little boy knows.
I think the mom knew.
Oh, you think the mom knew?
I think the mom was embarrassed because Alfredo tried to do it slyly with the other guy, and it's like, what did you find on the? And he's like, a comb, a this, a that.
Yeah.
Like And then she's like, this, you know, like I thought at least I think it was implied, you know, and
Mhm.
she was very thankful for just getting the money back, but maybe not.
I mean,
Yeah.
you might be right. It was played in such a way where it 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 could have been either way. She could have known, or he could have got it past her. I guess it doesn't really matter too much, you know. It's just the intention is what was important for us to see.
It has
But
something to do.
I really liked the teenage Toto character. I felt like I identified most with him. Maybe I'm just more nostalgic about my teenage years,
Mhm.
and kind of how, I mean, you know, in a way, I kind of feel like they were sort of perfect, you know, for all the ups and downs and challenges. And I feel like the big moments, even though they're probably like very small moments in real life, in my mind, they were like, oh, this is a wonderful moment. So, anyways, that's maybe why I identify with it so much. And I really like the actor who played Teenage Toto. I thought he was pretty fantastic and very handsome and charming. Um, and I kind of like the way that he navigated the world. The actor was really kind of pitch perfect. He wasn't like showy or anything. He almost comes off as a little bit. No, I won't say that. Never mind. I won't say that. He's a
Were
good
were
actor.
were you a lovesick teenager, Jason?
I've been a lovesick every age group all
Can
my
we
life.
talk like he was like the first stalker, huh? With a camera, just like
Oh
filming
yeah.
this girl,
Oh
and
god.
then like super considerate stalker being like, I'm gonna be outside of your window every single night.
Do that shit.
Like it's, I was like, whoa,
So
you know.
cute.
And then
He,
that reminded me of American Beauty and that kid with a camera just like
oh yeah.
filming, you know, a plastic bag. Back then it's like, yeah, I'm at the butcher, I'm gonna film freaking cow being butchered, and now I'm filming a girl. You know, like I'm like, I wonder where American Pie got that idea from.
American
All
Beauty.
they had was like a plastic bag in the wind.
Yeah. No, I feel you, man. It's
You're
he was
muted.
applying pressure.
You
He
said
applied
American
pressure
Pie.
and he got himself the girl.
You said
What?
American Pie.
Oh,
Yeah.
American Beauty. Sorry, American Beauty. My bad.
No, it's what boys think romance is, and it's cringy, very very cringy.
Who else hasn't gone for their favorite character or character they identify with?
Oh, I guess because I had to use the bathroom. I related very much to in that one scene. Since we talked about him recording the girl, he also recorded a few other things. He recorded this heifer, right? Who and I related to the heifer because I'm sure if I got stabbed in the gut, I'd probably just call it quits too.
Oh my
You
god.
related to the heifer that got stabbed to the ground.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy though?
What's
That was-
crazy?
one of the children. Uh, we end up realizing that because as time goes by, this child that happens to be a classmate of Salvatore, who ends up working also at the cinema later when he's a teenager, has a birthmark on his head, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But like, because you said the kid looked awfully young for his age, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, maybe he's not. Maybe just all the kids in his same class are held back because like that kid was so dumb, and they kept smacking his poor head on the chalkboard. It's like that's not a birthmark, that's a scar.
Is
Like
that who
that
you
poor
related
kid.
with the most, JP? When he said instead of
Chris-
725, he said
It's a
Christmas.
Navidad? No, no.
Hmm.
Mamma mia, I'm so bad at multiplications. Oh my god. But yeah, it's but I gotta admit, because you know, he as simple and dimwit as he was, that guy, they made him work. You know, when they made that mistake of like, oh, we can only share the same reel with two fucking towns. And, you know, I thought they were gonna like beat that poor motherfucker in the corner or something. It's
What
like,
a
nah,
great
you gotta
comedic
fucking
scene,
fight.
right?
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying, what a great comedic scene, right?
Right, it was awesome. But I couldn't help but think, it's like, give that poor boy a truck if you're
Yeah.
gonna be like jerks about it.
See, I thought what was going to happen with that scene was that he was going to take the wrong reel to the wrong town or something.
That'd be funny too.
That would have been great.
Yeah. Anybody else have a favorite character or someone you identify with in the film? Was that everybody?
I think so. I kind of brought those up when I was talking about the scenes earlier. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's jump into final thoughts. Steve, you want to lead us off tonight?
I'll keep it short, sweet, and brief. I believe this was my second time watching the movie, but when I did watch it the first time, I was probably very young, so I did not probably grasp everything that the movie encompasses because I'm much older now. And I can see through the lens of nostalgia a little bit. When you're young, you don't even know what nostalgia is yet.
Yeah.
But then you go like, Nickelodeon, give me all that back. Give me the Power Rangers back. Give me Dexter's Laboratory. And
X-Men '97.
Yeah. So you get you get that hit of nostalgia. So this movie is very convoluted as far as like themes and topics and lessons and things that the movie explores, but it's done in such a beautiful way that's absolutely flawless and incredible, and still shocks me that the Hollywood industry is just considered the cream of the cream of the crop, because there's some countries that got some dope ass movies that I would say can go toe to toe with American films, if not surpass them.
Mhm.
Or they could go total with American films.
Haha.
Oh boy.
Bye, guys.
And I would say that this movie is beautiful. I would definitely recommend it to people that enjoy cinema. And it's a great film to watch if you're coupled up or if you have some friends that have just time to just watch movies with. Uh, and it's definitely a great film to watch in a projector or a big screen for sure, with some nice sound too. And yeah, those are my final thoughts.
Yes, this would definitely be a pretty film to watch on a large silver screen. Who else? Who wants to go next with their final thought?
I'll go. I think it's a beautiful film. I feel like if you are a cinephile, this is something you definitely need to see. And like it's just a wonderful little moment in time. Like if you need emotional catharsis, but in like a very uplifting way, this is the way to go. It's just such an enjoyable film. I can't wait to revisit it.
Yep.
I'll have to second that, even though I was so upset that a film had to tell me how great it was before actually experiencing it. Other than that, like, no, this is actually like it's a really nice picture. Like, and like I'm sure a lot of us, especially like because almost all of us are like we now live in places, well, like except Des at the moment, but Des dreams big. So like this is not to say like we have left our homes before, and most of us currently are not at where we are originally from. And people who have experienced that or are going through that, I'm sure they would find a lot of things to connect to with this movie. If even if you're not like a big movie buff or like like we said, a cinephile, then you'll for sure, at least if you in life have evolved or grown past where you are no longer where you're at in life, you would definitely admire this movie. And it's crazy because like I'm sure, even if this was like, if this was fucking like the Paradise movie theater or something like that, like if it was a fucking American movie, like we only talked about it a little bit, but the love interest, like there's so many things in the film that you think, oh, they're gonna be resolved. Of course they're gonna be resolved. That you talked about in the past. No, the movie ends with like, yeah, his mentor died, left a little gift for him, and that's it. Like he's already learned the lessons, and we saw that from the movie before. We don't need any resolutions or whatever like that. It's literally, you know, like in the past, and whether or not that'll grow to something bigger later in his life, that's not part of the story that we were watching. So we didn't get to see it, and we didn't need to see it because it was great. Not every question or problem had to be resolved, and I actually admired the movie for that decision. You know, so yeah, I really liked it, and I honestly would not mind watching the film again. But I would definitely just skip the opening credits.
All right. Well, I'll go, and then Dino can close us out this evening. um, I really liked the film. It kind of hit me off guard. I wasn't expecting to like it this much, to be honest with you. And I can't wait, just like you guys. I can't wait to see this thing again. Like I do. I want to see it again one day. And I know I will. Um, after it took me almost 20 years to watch it in the first place, I finally got around to enjoying it. And I'm talking like an Italian with my hands. See that? Um, I do think I would recommend this to just about anyone. Like, I mean, if they don't like it, that's on them. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I tried to give you something good, and this is what you thought of it. But it's yeah, it's that movie, and I'm sure I know people who wouldn't like it. They might say stuff like it's slow or too Italian-y. I don't know, but I dug it. It made me feel nostalgic for a town and a place in life that I'd never experienced, So it's beautiful in that way. And it's just really a masterclass in very clever filmmaking as well. There's really not a dull moment in this movie, dare I say. So I can see why it did so well with the Palme d'Or winnings and whatnot. I don't know about the recent winnings of the Palme d'Or because that French movie that won this past year, good Lord, I don't know what to make of that.
Titan.
Yeah, Titan. But yeah, that's my final thoughts with the film. Dino, you want to close us out this evening?
Yeah. Again, I really love this movie, and like I said, I had it up there, and now after not watching it for a long time and watching it again, yeah, it's still up there. Definitely recommend it to people that like cinema. People, if you talk about foreign films, I would recommend it. If Life is Beautiful comes up, it's like, well, if you like that, you should watch this. Life is Beautiful has a little kid who's also great. So clearly, little kids in Italy are just phenomenal actors. Um, I enjoy this movie immensely. Just final kind of thing, like watching it this time again, what I remember, even like why I guess touched me so much is like there's a scene where like when it rains, like water is coming into the movie theaters and they have an umbrella, and like the last time I went to the movie theater, I talked about seeing Jurassic Park and all that. There was a giant hole in the roof, and it was so cold, and so like and I know the movie. It was Any Given Sunday. That was the final movie I saw at my childhood movie theater, and we were in bundled up, not because the AC was super cold, because there's a hole in the roof and we could see the moon, and it's stuff like that. Like at least for me, like growing up, like I just had all these kind of similar or in being able to relate with it of just moments that I was just like, oh, I had that too, or oh man, I remember when this happened. So yeah, watching it again, like all these memories, from yesteryears came out, and then what was great of the DVD, it had like trailers for other Italian movies. So then I started watching the other movies that the director did, and they're pretty good. Malena is one of them, but he's all about also kind of that. I don't know who the director in the U.S. that does like teenage or growing of age stories. I don't know if Spielberg would be a good kind of comparison, but just telling stories of like anyway, growing up or youth and blah blah blah. So yeah, I would keep recommending to this, and at some time I will revisit again. Maybe in another 10 years, I will say watch the theatrical release. Do not watch the director's cut. Theatrical release is the way to go. Hey,
That's a
Jason.
what? Hold on, Dino. That's a really good point because I was going to actually bring that up. I'm glad you said something. I had just remembered to do it. About there's more than one version of this film. There's the version that we saw, which we saw the 2 hour version. There's also a 4 hour version of this film, in case anyone was curious. And from what I hear, the few reviews I've read, every reviewer said it's a much better film when it's 2 hours. By
Yeah, don't
chopping
do
off
it.
half the movie, it gets really good. So, if you want more that happened in this town, there's 2 more hours of this film out there. So
It's
that's
not good. And it takes away from the town. It takes away from the story that everything we said watching that longer version, if that was the first time you watched it, you would have I don't think you would have liked it as much.
That-
It makes the story not as likable as well as the characters. It just takes away from it. So I think this movie works, and again, me personally, I think this movie works best when it focuses on the town and kind of that narrative, and even the main characters you're just seeing kind of their lives kind of along, it's playing along the line of the town and the movie theater and not trying to take the center stage or steal the story from the TV. The movie's called Cinema Paradiso, not Toto's love story or Alfredo's this or that, so keep it about the simple town and movie theater is what I say. But Jason, is there another question you have perchance?
well, yes, by chance, Dino, there is. Thanks for reminding me. Steve, what do you got for us next week? You're muted, buddy.
I am so glad you asked, and because it's time, guys. It's time. It's time to change the theme that we've been on for a while.
Okay.
And from now going forward, we are going to pick two movies. Yes, two movies for the cinema club to vote on to decide what the next movie is going to be.
Oh boy, I'll one up you. I'll pick 3.
Why you always gotta be different, JP?
Yeah, well, you got to be weird, JP. So with your fingers, this is how you're gonna do. For number 1, you go 1, whichever hand you want to use, and if it's 2, you're gonna do 2 this way.
Oh, not
this way.
It's like a gang
One.
thing. What is this?
And for 2,
No, it's just my preference. I want to do it that way, so you guys better
Okay.
comply. So
Illuminati stuff.
movie number 1. It's been talked about a lot, and why not? I feel like it's a good movie to discuss. Don't Look Up.
okay.
And movie number 2 is another one that's raving right now. Is Encanto.
Oh,
It's tough. It's tough. I know it's tough.
we don't.
But
we
number
don't talk
1,
about that.
Don't Look Up. Number 2, Encanto.
Okay, I think I know what I want to do.
So
Go.
Same.
Okay, go ahead. Reveal it in 1, 2, 3.
Found these results on search.
Oh, it's a tie. Oh no, it's not.
Oh,
Okay.
no, it is a tie. It is a tie.
No, I thought it.
why?
Oh no, it's not a tie. Oh, there you go.
No,
Encanto.
you don't vote.
Encanto won.
I can't vote against my race, or my ethnicity.
Yeah, and they tell me that we can't talk about this movie. I don't know what I'm doing. Fuck me.
Just
Good night, everybody.
Michaela, JP, El Dantino, Jason Echoes, and Steve TV. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, I'm Jason
Bye,
Echoes,
bye,
and thank you for
bye.
watching the Dimelo
Bye.
Network. There's some videos here. Watch one of them, and then you can subscribe to the network, and you can see more good stuff.